Now, for some of the people, a lot of people want to go out and write their own books and things like that. You obviously had the name. There was some success behind it, so it was a little bit easier. But maybe some recommendations from you if people were to approach a publisher to try and get something published. What should they do? What should they not do?
The first things I would do in a book, if I was creating a book right now, I would create a blog and I would share it on the blog and I'd get a following and I wouldn't tell them I'm writing a book, but I would share the content and kind of test it and demo it and make sure you pick your demographics. One of the great rules of writing a book that I learned a long time ago is write the sales letter first. So you write in basically the outline. So you write and pick your audience and your target first. Then you use your blog to share it. And once you've got a community, now you have a viable place to share. You'll have buyers for the book, right? I mean, you can, as Seth Godin has proven, the great Seth Godin has proven that you can give a book away and still sell it, right?
Right.
The idea of Iris, he gave 1 million away and sold 1.5 million, the first week. So, it's you still can give it away. The other thing I would do is I would look, right now, I hate to give all this stuff away, but I will anyway.
Appreciate it.
I'd write smaller books.
Okay.
I would, Strength for Life need to be what Strength for Life is, but there's at least 3 solid books in there, and they are broken down into book 1, 2, and 3. And if I took Strength for Life and I took the 12-day reboot out of it, and that was a standalone book, it'd be the bestseller. It would be a bestseller, and it by itself is enough content for a book.
Right.
So I would take more of a smaller cut approach, and I'd more specifically target what I'm going to say, and I wouldn't make it be the master guide. Yeah. We've got too many master guides out there, too many mega guides, right? Mm-hmm. Then I would consider self-publishing options too, because when I worked with Random House, God bless them, and I appreciate them greatly, but talk about fiefdoms and old schools and living in a different generation. I told him my next book was going to be the death of the last great dinosaur, how the publishing industry extincted itself.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether to send the red line back on a wagon train or FedEx.
Wow.
It's a piece of work, and it takes from the time you get pitch your book to a publisher to the time you get it published, if you're in a hurry, it's 1.5 years.
Interesting. Now, would you say, again, in your case, it may be a little bit different because there was the background, there was some success, a little bit easier, but what types of things did they do for you to market the book, or was that all on your end?
It was really on my end. They had some marketing plan and stuff. I paid for all my PR and stuff. And, the tough part about timing was my book came out right in the middle of the writer's strike for television, right? Yeah. And so literally the writer's strike got resolved the same week my book came out. And so all my media, all my Today Show and stuff all got bumped to get TV back on. And I was like, oh, that was sweet. So I had a whole Medium profile set up, and man, I was off the air for 6 weeks while they packed in the last of the season.
Yeah. Now, how long did it take before it reached bestseller status?
Well, I did all that push, and my bestseller,
Right.
I never hit New York Times. I hit top 20 New York, but I hit,
Still.
but I got to the top of Amazon, and I got top of Fitness. I got number 2 overall, which, it used to be the old days you could get number 1 pretty rapidly, but it's harder and harder to do these days,
Absolutely.
You get a big Oprah book and you try to beat that off Amazon. Good luck,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are you planning, you'd said there's some other things, but planning any other ideas maybe for books in the future? Anything rolling around upstairs?
I've always got ideas for books, one thing I can't do is stop writing. I sit down. Every time I sit down, I write 1,800 words. I'm like, what was that? And so, I love it. It's a great outlet for me. And it's a challenge. Sometimes I really admire like Seth Godin's ability to write a 400 or 200 word blog post.
Yeah.
And it's like, I go, oh, I'll do that. And I sit down and I write 1,200. I'm like, what was that?
Right.
So, it's great because I think the content's great. And I think I have an interesting perspective. After this many years in this thing, I have a different perspective than most people. And I take a pretty practical approach, and I kind of bring in that mindfulness and awareness practice and meditation and guides, and I just write a different view, and it's fun, and I enjoy it, and I wish I could blog more regularly. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying some of the video blogging too these days. That's fun.
Yeah.
But I've always got ideas for books. Right now, what I'm really focused on right now, and I'm back on my kind of core audience, which is really focused on that man in the middle. I've gone from the guy, original thinking that it's the second half of life, and I said to hell with the second half of life, and I decided that it's the middle third. So I call it, my target is found men in the middle third, ages 35 to 55 or 60.
Yep.
That, really, I mean, like I said in Strength for Life, you can get away with murder in your 20s as long as you don't get caught. I mean, you can disrespect your body, treat it like hell. You fake it through your 30s. About 35 on, most guys start to slow down and they're dragging ass, but they don't know how tired and weak they are because they're running on coffee and life. They think it's cool. But how you live from 40 to 50 is going to dictate how and if you live the rest of your life.
Interesting.
Yep.
Now, some people know you have another book that was before this. It was the Ab Solution, like the practical guide to building your best abs. How was that, I guess, a harder challenge for you to put that together than, the Strength for Life book?
No, Strength for Life was an absolute ass whipping. I'll give you that backstory in a minute. But sure. Absolution, because it was the first book and and it was cool. I think a cool concept, the whole idea of doing kind of a coffee table knowledge guide, bringing in a little bit of that, because of the imagery and stuff. And the abs book was one that was called for because, me and Frank Zane got famous for abs, and
Right.
I'm lucky to have achieved that and held that for so many years, and still got my abs back now thanks to my cycling these days. But cycling, I mean cycling as in bicycles.
Yeah.
I know how easy that can get confused these days. So Absolution, and it was a chore, graphically it was a lot of design element. And I wrote a lot for it because I kind of tend to overwrite. So I wrote a lot for that book, and then Bill really helped edit it down because he, it's not his writing, so he could cut it more and make it. And it came out to be a great, concise guide. What I've never released is really the full Absolution. I have a kind of in development Absolution 2. What's the more in development? It's actually sitting on a PDF on my desk over there. Right. Absolution 2, which is really kind of the full picture. More and more stuff in it. I might do that as an ebook or a freebie just because there's so much wisdom and knowledge in there.
Mm-hmm. You said the other one was an ass kicking.
Yeah, it was a real ass kicking, man.
Okay.
I thought that I'd be really smart because I had a nice contract and I have a great agent, and so I brought in a guy who was a writer. I thought, well, I'm not a book writer. I'm a writer, but I'm not a book writer. So I brought in a guy and paid him a boatload of money he's a writer of a lot of fitness books, like 10 fitness books. So he's got quite I figure, okay, this will be cool. Frickin' idiot, I mean, just unbelievable,
Yeah.
And what I realized is that most people really think of fitness books as bubblegum chewing, ball kicking, spit thing kind of thing. They just have an attitude about them. They don't respect the reader. I think they talk down to the reader. They tell them things without having to explain. They don't bring them along. And so what we did is I got so far with this book and I hated what was happening with it. I hated working with him. I didn't like the way he was rephrasing my language. I didn't like the way he treated the reader. So I published the manuscript so that they would have their manuscript on my due date. And then I rewrote the first 4 chapters and I sent them into my editor, and she goes, I don't know, whatever this is, more of this. So I proceeded to begin to rewrite the book, and I kind of strung them along. It took me three and a half months to rewrite the entire book by myself. I worked 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, slept about 3 hours a night, landed in the hospital twice out of fatigue. But I mean, I figured, look, this book's going to be on the shelf for 20 years. My kids are going to read this book. And what I want is a book that literally, that I can be proud of. I mean, it does what I want it to do. And I came away from that thing extremely satisfied with the product I put out. It was interesting. I just today got an email on Facebook, speaking of Facebook again, from an old friend of Frank Zane's, a guy who's been around training, a scientist guy for, he's probably in his late 60s. And his email says, I know you, Shawn, but just picked up, embarrassingly, I just picked up your book, Strength for Life, a couple weeks ago. And he said, having read the first 5 or 6 chapters now, he says, I find it the most refreshing, clear, concise, guided approach to strength training I've seen since the late 50s, early 60s. He goes, it's amazing that it's basically physical culture coming back. And I'm like, oh, great. I mean, here's a guy who's been around who can see it. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of people would just tell me it's like reading Strength for Life is like taking a walk with a friend who has his arm around your shoulder talking to you versus talking at you.
Right.
I'd rather have a discussion with you than sit there and just tell you what the hell to do and pretend like this is the gospel, you know?
Yeah. So that would be your big piece of advice for anybody who's looking to write something, is to, not talk at them, try to be, help them along instead of telling them what to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's don't anoint yourself the savior. Be a friend and talk to like a friend and have a conversation. I just like the conversation approach. And I've got to say too, the thing is you got to edit, and you got to edit again, and you got to edit again, and you got to challenge yourself and edit again. I mean, the toughest thing about writing a book is that you don't get to say everything.
Yeah.
And you have to take it down to chunks. And I'm a big fan of what goes on in the ebook world these days, and I think that there's some powerful, great things being done out there, and I think it's awesome marketing and stuff. But I'll tell you what, when it comes to putting something on paper that's going to be there forever, that you don't get to change again, and doing an old school, hardcore, hardback book, there's something to be said for that, because that's another level of work and a feat of it's a feat of strength that few people can withstand, really.
Right. It's a lot of work. Well, are you looking to venture into maybe doing more of the ebook side since it's a little bit less work, or are you gonna, if the next ones maybe go hardcover again?
Well, I've got some ebooks out. I like doing the free ebooks and the guides, and I think I'm looking less. I will do a hardcover book again, and I'll do some ebooks, but I'm liking the guide of programs. Like I like, taking people through something. Like I want to reach deeper into getting, not just it's like even great knowledge like a book is hard for people to apply in their life. It's hard to get me to get that to change, and I know how hard change is for people. So I really like taking them through kind of a module program, a combination of online, offline. You join a community and you go through the process of getting from point A to point B, and that's that inspires me and gets me lifted, because then you get the connection too. Because I think one of the great powers these days, and one of the great powers in fitness and in life, is really community driven. It's being involved, and I had to kind of relearn that through my cycling experience, getting on a bike, and I would not have become the avid cyclist I am today if it hadn't been for the fact that other people drug my ass along. Nobody had to teach me to strength train. I go train every day because that's, like some people breathe, I train and I eat well. I just do it. I don't think about it. It's not discipline. It's not effort. It's what I do. But for me to get on a cycle, my heavy ass up a canyon hill out here, I was like, what, man? Nah, this sucks,
Yeah,
and
you're not in the area that's too flat either. So
no. All we do is ride canyons, and here I am at 195, 200 pounds, dragging my ass up, And this is about 4 years ago when I first started really taking it on. And I recognize if I didn't have the social group that I had to show up for, I wouldn't do it. And now I drag other people up the mountains, and it's cool because you pay it forward, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so you got the book, doing great with all that. Full Strength Nutrition. Where in the process did that come about? Was that before the book, or was that you had finished the book and then you decided to jump into that?
No, it's before the book, and it really comes out. It's a story I've talked about a few times, but when I was getting married is when it first came up. So that's like 7 years, I think, ago. I was out at Bill's house in Beverly Hills and we were doing some stuff, and I'd realized I'd kind of run out of Mileplex. I was flat out of Mileplex. I had kind of kept a big stock of all the real great Mileplex Deluxe. And I figure, okay, well, as much as I hate to do it, I'll go buy some Mileplex. And I went and bought it, and this stuff sucks. It's just, the taste and delivery, everything about it was horrible. So I go, there's got to be another nutrition shake. And I kept looking, I couldn't find something. So Bill and I went out. I go, somebody has to be doing something. So we went out and spent 2 days driving to like 30 nutrition stores, talking to every person. We bought 50 different types of shakes, obscure things, popular things, and we tried everything and went through it. And I was like, man, what a bunch of crap, and I just was, even things that had decent ingredient profiles tasted like hell, So I go, I called the project the $5 nutrition shake. I said, you know what? We should just build a nutrition shake that we want to take. I don't care if it costs $10, but, we'll call it the $5 shake, a la Pulp Fiction,
Right.
That's one Mofo Good $5 shake. So, and that became the whole concept, and just building a shake. And so we went back to the guys that had built the original Mileplex, profilers, and I had kind of drawn the macronutrient profile, how I wanted it to work on a napkin. I said, here's how the macronutrients need to be delivered. Here's the things that need to be in it. Here's how science changed. So we kind of looked at all this stuff and put it together. And then the brand came from a friend of ours that came to my wedding. He's a big media guy, actually. He used to be entertainment television and all this stuff. And he just said, Lee Masters is his name. And Lee said, I just want the Phillips full strength shake. That's all I want. I want the Phillips full strength shake. And I said, all right, full strength it is. And somehow I got the domain. So, I got a registered mark on full strength, but I built the shake. Took me a year, took a couple years to get it launched. I took it out to retail, thinking, that'd be great to get it out to retail. And I realized that they just, retail had gone to hell. Nobody wants to sell something quality anymore. And, for me to take it to GNC, because it cost me so much to make my shake right now, it cost $8 a serving. So I just went direct with it. I said, you know what? People that buy it will buy it direct from me. I sell it through a few alternative providers, some chiropractors, some nutritionists and stuff like that, but mostly it's just direct. And, I don't discount it. And I mean, most, probably 80% of my people are regular customers. They receive it monthly on a shipment. I've had people that have been taking 2 shakes a day for 4 or 5 years.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. Now I'm curious, going back when you're getting the supplements and everything on the shelves in the stores, is there some sort of stocking fee that they charge you when you put stuff up on there, like on their shelves? Well,
everything's changed these days. Okay. Even early days when EAS first came out, GNC was starting to become a kind of a big dog, and you had your distributors and you had your GNC and you had those games you played, and GNC in those days wanted to short check and short pay you or long pay you or whatever, and we basically waited till GNC had to have us, and then they went on our terms.
Okay.
Right now, all that's changed, and basically your pay on scan. So you own all the inventory sitting in there. Then they want ridiculous margins. I mean, right now, to be a manufacturer in this industry, that's a tough place to play because your margins have gone to hell. And so, hence the reason everybody's got to make stuff for nickels and dimes. And my guess would be that to build a Mileplex compared to a full strength costs about probably 15 to 20% of what it cost me to build a full strength.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because you can't build it. Ideally I should have more, products out with different margin structures, because nutrition shakes, the hardest thing to build, the hardest thing to inventory. I build a fresh batch every 90 days. Most things you're going to buy in GNC have probably been built within the year, maybe. Mm-hmm. So and freshness is an issue. I custom build, hand build, small batch build. I put all my own guys on staff. I buy my own raw materials. I control all my manufacturing. I try to improve the product every single time. I think of what I do as kind of a vintner building a fine wine.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Absolutely. And, seeing, there's a lot of money that goes into it, R&D, and having people to run it. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. And so you don't want to have those extra costs and fees by putting it on the shelves. That's why you decided to keep it mostly online and then sell through chiropractors and other places, right?
Yeah. Just the margin structure is so bad. For me to go out, I either have to be, so if I'm a Ferrari of nutrition and I'm on the shelf with a bunch of, Kias or something, right? Yeah. Then, why is this one 3 times the cost of that one? So I either have to change the way I build the product, which I don't want to do because I'm selfish and I use the product. I either have to reduce the quality of the product somewhat, start cutting some corners, or I have to sell it at a price that makes it pretty, I don't think it's bad, but it's still hard to get out there. So by the time I sell to a distributor, get him his cut, and then he sells to a GNC or to, a franchise or an independent store, those margins make it, pretty hard to get, if you were to see how margins get cut down, the consumer, not much of what you're paying for is for the product itself. So what I do is, I simply build the product, I sell it straight to you, and that's it, man. There's no middleman, there's no cuts, there's no other margins, and I'm not making a ton on the product, it's kind of, I call it the one of the stupidest business you could be in. It's a hard business to run. It's a lot of cost to inventory. It's a lot of manufacturing. Putting powder into a capsule and putting it in a jar with a label on it, that ain't all that hard. It's not easy. But I mean, I've had people go out and try full strength, and smart people in this industry, and people with a lot of money, and they've tried for a year to recreate or copy full strength or build a similar nutrition shake, and they finally call me up and they go, "Can I buy your product? Because I can't do that. I've spent millions of dollars and I can't do what you've done." And it's like, unless you have the background in how to do this, and you know the people, and you know how to do this stuff and control it, man, it's a hell of a tough business to be in.
Yeah, no, it's obviously there's a huge marketing ploy to it, because it is, as you said, the Ferrari of those products. The fast performance food, I'm kind of curious, was that part of the marketing idea with it, or was that is that the marketing idea for it?
Well, I mean, that's really one of the angles I've run with this food, because I built full strength on a paradigm of food. I said, look, it's one thing to have an enhanced protein delivery mechanism, which is really what Metrics was originally. So I want to add something to protein to make it a better protein delivery system. And really what the Nutrition Shake 2.0 is in full strength is, instead of looking at it as how do I better deliver protein and some nutrients, I said, how do I mimic a food meal? So I looked at how a meal gets delivered with a balance of protein, carbohydrates, essential fats. So with full strength, I break down the macronutrient delivery system such that it controls and satiates an appetite. It provides your fiber, your prebiotics, your probiotics, your essential fats. I mean, I've really built it around a man's, health and support. I put neurotropics in there to boost cognitive power. And so I built really what works as a food. And what panned out for me is, a couple years ago, I did a study at the University of Oklahoma where basically we just added full strength to people's diets against the control of exercise alone. And the results I got in a 10-week study, I mean, absolutely baffled the researchers. I mean, the head researcher, Dr. Stout, I mean, you probably know Jeffrey Stout, has been in this industry forever. And, he sat down after he was done with the study and he said, this is the most significant study I've ever seen in my life. He goes,
wow.
He goes, as far as I can tell, this is the end of dieting, because we change people's body compositions. I have the only study that has significant increases in lean body mass while significant reductions in body fat occurred simultaneously with no calorie restriction whatsoever.
Wow.
Okay. What does that mean? If you look at what that means, you mean it's ultimately the only way that can happen, because fat is lost in a deficit of calories and muscle is not gained when fat is lost. So it's virtually impossible to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time unless you're making a shift in your hormonal system, right?
Right.
And so really what I built full strength on, when you look at what am I trying to get a meal to do? I'm trying to get a meal to control my blood sugar, my insulin levels, really. Not just nourish my body, but if I get stable blood sugar and delivery of my nutrients such a way that they keep me energized for 4 hours, which is what I'm getting on a full strength, then what I've really created is an insulin control system. Well, insulin being the master control hormone, when you control your insulin and you get stable insulin levels, not only do you eat more rationally, have better energy all day long, but you can also optimize your hormonal system. So you start to get your testosterone and growth hormone coming back to a normal state. So what happened is it took me 9 months to get that full strength study from Oklahoma published. Well, why did it take so long? Because here's all these guys on the review panel looking at the science going, how did a food change a body like this? I mean, how did that work? I mean, they're just baffled. And finally, when you look at the hormonal regulation component of it, you're like, oh my God, it acted like they were on some sort of a hormone. I mean, it altered the way the body worked from the inside, which changed the way the body regulated its own hormone system.
You think there's some medical uses for this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the nutrition shake as a whole, I think that, where Metrics came from, or where the nutrition shake originally spawned from, was from the National Cancer Research Institute trying to come up with a nutrition for cancer patients, right? And they failed, and Metrics succeeded. So, I mean, there's a lot of application in both recovery, people who are sick, people who are, but more so when I think about the medical aspect. I mean, if you can help people, not control, but if you can help people control the way their body has been responding to foods, the way their insulin levels, their diabetes. I mean, I've got guys using full strength that have gone off insulin. I mean,
That's awesome.
Really have lost hundreds of pounds and completely gone off insulin. They've been insulin-dependent diabetics, type 2s, and have gone off insulin because they get control of their blood sugar levels. And and get that insulin stabilized, and that's such a powerful component. I mean, the vision of full strength, what I see is, and it's not full strength. I think it's the nutrition shake. It's the reason I went back into the nutrition shake, because I believe that the nutrition shake can and should be the most predominant form of fast food in the world. By the year 2018, if 30% of Americans consumed a single nutrition shake a day, not just a full strength, but a single shake a day, we'd live in a different world.